Yeah, he's the one that said, "Oh, the Coca-Cola was so good he could see the iridescent light of God in the ice cube."
Such a great intro by Goodbye Lunar. Welcome, everyone. I'm Cameron, joined by Rob Shields.
That's me.
Thanks for coming along on this new journey that we're on with this new podcast. Rob, give us a little fill-in of what to expect.
Yeah, I'm so loaded up to tell you what is happening for this podcast, because what this podcast basically is a journey, right? It's a traveling. It is an exploration of life, the universe, and everything. And I know you're like, whoa, that's too much. How are you going to get specific? What is this about? Are you going to tell jokes? I don't know. It's about an exploration of what we want to learn. And I know, like, I'm constantly troubled.
We've got a lot of problems.
We got a lot of problems. I've since I was 13, I've had man boobs. This is a tough world we live in, and how are we dealing with the things that we have to carry with us?
And we can't solve them by ourselves.
I can't solve anything by myself. I literally need advice and contemplation from every living human being around me at all times.
I think self-help books should be called We Help books.
Yes. And you wouldn't have been able to come up with that, though, unless both of us were together having that conversation.
Exactly.
We made We Help books. And that's what this is all about. That's what this entire journey is about. And I know, and one journey that we've learned is don't give yourself a date for anything ever. Don't give yourself a date on when to plan a podcast, because your journey is going to be challenging and difficult, right? And for those of you who have come traveling over from our wildly successful podcast, the Play Upstream podcast, and are like, what are they going to do? What's going to be so unique and so interesting here that's going to change my whole perspective? And I'll tell you.
Tell us.
In subsequent episodes, as you watch this show and listen to the show, we will be telling you that story as we go along.
It's going to be a journey for all of us. We hope you enjoy. What are we talking about today?
Well, this is what we're talking about today, and I think this is basically what's going to be happening all the time. It's like y'all like interviews, like you like hearing from other people, you like getting some insight and that stuff. We do too. My philosophy in life, and I'm sure Cam's is as well, because we talk about this all the time, is that we love getting information and knowledge and absorbing information from other people like a sponge, right? What can we glean from you? And the Play Upstream podcast that we did that all the time with artists, and that was brilliant. And I loved hearing from their experiences and their stuff. But I had a lot of questions that I wanted to get to about my own business and Cam's own business and the stuff that we talk about all the time. So we figured we would take that experience of learning from other people and the needs that we have and interweave them and bring them together, so that now we can explore this together in a podcast that we're not, there was so much professionalism happening with the Play Upstream podcast. God,
Zero professionalism is expected out of this one.
And I know you don't come to a podcast expecting to be professional. This is wildly amateur. But
what are we talking about today, Rob?
Oh, yeah, you put me back on track. This is what I think I'm so good. So put me right back. I'm too excited. I'm too filled. I had a 1/8 of a White Claw, and now I'm like, the Superman. All right, this is what happened. Okay. I'm gonna get serious for a minute. I'll bring it back down. I have had a recent brush with death. Not actual death, but the concept of death. And And like, in all seriousness, like that's real. Like that really happened.
It was.
I'll break it down a little bit because the story is very important. I had a sore throat, and I'm gonna get into that and talk about that. I got a sore throat, and it made me think about my own demise. I don't know. It's COVID time. Shit's weird, right? Any ailment that you have becomes so big. And I just kind of thought about all this stuff, and I was very stressed out. And I'm still not 100% convinced, even though a doctor spoke to me.
You sought out a doctor.
I sought out a doctor virtually. A doctor was in my room talking to me, and in no uncertain terms said, "I am 95% sure that you are fine."
Here's knowing you though, you went, well, what about the other 5%?
Yeah. So 5%, that's 5% of a billion people is, and we could, figure the number, and you could, figure that. I don't know. It really scared me. And I thought a lot about this stuff, and I thought, we're starting something new here though, right? This is not the death of the Play Upstream podcast. This is the beginning of a new endeavor, but it's the death of what it used to be, which was just a singular podcast experience. So I wanted to bring someone here who was maybe the greatest critic of our work that we've had, and also an inspiration for us continuing, and is both a giver of life and a destroyer of life. I don't know how he's also he's a British Grim Reaper. And what we have here is none other than the original, the progenitor, Mr. Robert James Shields.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Killing it already.
Dude, already fire. This for those of you who may have not put the thing in, yes, Robert James Shields, also known as Dad, also known as Papa. You go by Papa, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
This is my father. The thing that's great is that Cam and my father have worked professionally together already. So we have a long history with Cam and my father. We also have a long history together. I'm not going to refer to you as my father.
I've also spent holidays with.
That's
my
right.
family has graciously invited me for Thanksgivings and Easters and Christmases, and you guys have taken me, and he's like a papa to me.
Yep.
I've known Cam for a long time.
So
who do you like better, Rob or me?
I like all of Curtis, my son's friends, Rob, all of his friends better than him.
We just want to explain the Curtis thing before we go any further, because it's going to happen.
Right. My first name's Robert, and we kind of had a tradition in our family that the first son, born would be named Robert. And it's gone on for quite a few generations. And so I thought, that'd be great, but his mom didn't like it, so he didn't want it. So I thought, well, let's call him Robert Curtis Shields, and we'll just call him by his middle name.
Yeah. And
so that worked out. But my stepdad also was called by his middle name, and he always said that's a bad idea. So,
so where do you stand?
Yeah, I call him Curtis. In our family, he's Curtis. So it's always funny when we get out of the family and people start calling him Rob. It can be a bit confusing at times. But
I've had family members go by a different name, and after multiple years of hanging out with them and their friends, I'll use their family name, and they'll be like, "That's his real name."
Yeah.
What? Who is that? Who is that person? I don't know who you're talking about. I'm like, oh, him. That's his name. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It gets tedious, that's why I changed. That's why I went with Robert. First of all, I don't know. Curtis to me always it doesn't have the prowess that Robert has, right? I feel like Rob, I always see myself as Rob. And then I got tired of telling people that call me Curtis. That's really what it was. Sheer laziness named me for my entire life. And also, on both sides of my family, every male has Robert in their name, literally. My uncle was Robert, my grandfather was Robert on my mom's side, and my uncle, his middle name is Robert, and because my grandma didn't want him to be left out, she made his middle name Robert, and then my grandfather, that side's Robert, both sides Roberts. So it's only fitting the way my middle name. But anyways, that's a long story short. That is why Mr. Robert J. Shields might be calling me Curtis from time to time. All right, have we solved that issue?
I think so.
Thank you so much. Dad, I know that this is something that, it's a difficult subject to tackle, but I've recently had a brush with death, and I would like to start and I just want to know what was you what you started out with a very unique and interesting start to your life, I would say, right? And I just want to I want to tap into that a little bit. I think a little history on you and where you've come from and all that. And then I want to tackle some more subjects just about the concept of things about your life that pertain, just how that evolved. This is going badly for me explaining this, but let's start off with your life. Where did you begin?
Okay, so I was born in Leicester, England, right in the middle of England there. And so at an early age, my parents got divorced and my mom married an American. So when I was 14, I moved to America as a freshman in high school. So it was quite a culture change, even though we spoke the same language. It was very confusing for me at the time. Just even like going to McDonald's was scary, right? Because you'd be like order food and you weren't sure what the price was or what the taxes would be and if you had enough money. And so everything was very stressful. And especially starting off high school as a freshman, because, I had no idea what American high schools were like other than, say maybe in the movie Grease. That's the experience I had. So I thought it was, So
how much musical preparation did you put in before your first day in American high school?
So that was the movie right before I left, in 78 that was over there that I watched. So, I seem to remember that quite clearly. So, coming over to America, I was super excited thinking, we're going to be by Disneyland and I'm going to be in America. So I was excited, but, once I was here a few weeks, a month or so, I started realizing, well, I've left everybody behind, right? And it's just regular everyday, I had no friends. I had my brother with me and of course my mom and my stepdad. So we didn't have any friends. And then starting school, everything was very stressful because it was so different, right? So I can only imagine what it's like for people that come over here that don't even speak the language necessarily, right? So even I had a difficult time with it. But it was fun. Like when the bell went off and when everybody was going to assembly, I'd just kind of follow everybody wondering what was happening. And then I'd go in and it was music and a band and cheerleaders. We never had any of that stuff, right? In England, we sang hymns basically when I went. And so it was very exciting, but at the same time, just kind of crazy, right? I'm trying to adjust, but so I did that, I moved to America. That was a big change in my life. I left my family behind. And in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, a phone call even to the next city was expensive, right? A few cities over. So, I didn't really communicate very much with the people back in England. So I got to miss out on a lot of stuff, I felt.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, my brother who came too didn't adapt too well. He didn't like it here so much. So he actually went back to England to live with my dad. And so I felt like I was even more kind of on my own, but I got lucky. I found religion at that time, was going to church and had a lot of friends.
Wait, what?
Rob,
You found religion at that time?
Yeah, I went through a religious phase, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah,
What?
so I went to church and I found it really helpful at the time.
Was that because it was a community?
Yeah, well, I had a friend. I met a guy just walking home from school who lived a couple streets over.
Uh-huh.
And we walked home and we started kind of becoming friends. And then he invited me to go to his church for the youth group. And I thought, great, there's all these people, right? But, girls too and stuff. So I was pretty excited and they would do stuff. So I got in, some friends there doing that. And that lasted for a little while until, after a couple of years to high school, then we moved because, we just come over from England. So we were renting a condo and then we purchased a home in Chino Hills. So we moved from Placentia where we were living up to Chino Hills. And it's funny because when you didn't drive, if you move an hour away when you're a kid, unless your parents are going to drive you everywhere and do stuff, you kind of lose touch, even though it's not that far.
Right.
So I sort of lost touch with that. And that's when I met my next group of friends, Mark and Brent and Mike and those old friends. And then, so I went through high school and then I graduated from high school and I thought, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I had no idea.
So, yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm interested in is that you move out from England, right? you come out here and like, what did you think about, like, did you think it would be a cool opportunity? Like you could reinvent yourself? Like how, how are you personally in England? Like, did that change? Were you popular when you were young in England?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean it's a little different. I went to an all boys school, right? So it was a bit different. And then when I finally went to what they would call college, which was really sort of, high school. Um, I was only there a short time, like 6 or 7 months. So before we did move, so I didn't sort of make any connections there. So no, I had no idea. I came from a family that were basically working class. I mean, there's nobody in my family that ever got a degree that I know of, right? So we're a very working class family. So I didn't have any ideas of what I wanted to be. I just thought I'd just plod through life and things would happen, right? I had no plans whatsoever.
When you came to the US, were you the cool British kid? You had to have been the only British kid in class.
Yeah, I was the only British kid, but I don't think I was necessarily that cool. Because I was kind of shy, not shy, but more nervous. And you get tired of people saying, say this, say that.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, it's the same old story, right? And yeah, so it was very difficult because I felt that maybe I was a bit different. I like different things. I dressed differently. I mean, you can imagine the fashion in England. I had Doc Martens airwear boots on when people were laughing at them. In the late 70s. Wait, flash, forward 10 years and they're the most popular thing and everybody loves them now, right? So, just little things like that.
If you would look back at that time, now that you're older, right? Mm-hmm. You're older, you're getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
Right? As we all are. Well, I mean, serious. I'm talking about
a little bit, every day. Yep.
I'm thinking about that. I just turned 30, and or 34, I guess, but I just got my 30s. And I think now about my own mortality, like, what do I have to accomplish then? So like, are there things that now that like in your time now that you wish that you would have like realized about yourself or done differently during that time?
Yeah, it's hard though, because I don't think I had the confidence really to change things. I didn't have a car. It was, I was kind of a bit down, I think, but, I spent a lot of time reading. And I did find some good friends. So I ended up having, shortly after that, I mean, having some really good fun times, so I don't think, I don't dwell on it as that. I don't see that as some part of my life where I was growing very much.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you in high school?
The most embarrassing thing that happened to me in high school. I don't know, other than just being, I can't think of, I can think of plenty of things that, my friends got embarrassed by, right? Them, but I don't really remember too much about myself as far as a specific incident that I felt was really embarrassing, other than we were kind of poor. And I tell you what, we used to shop at, we were pretty poor when we came over. My stepdad was just started working. So we would shop at Kmart. And they got me these shoes, right? They got me these shoes and they were the cheap brand. I forget what they were. And they were like plastic tennis shoes, really cheap, right? So we were playing soccer at high school and I kicked the ball and it ripped the sole off the bottom of the shoe, right? So the teacher took me in and put duct tape around it because I had PE first period, right? So I walked around with a duct tape shoe all day. And that was really embarrassing because I was already, self-conscious.
I straight pooped my pants. Yeah, like that's my most embarrassing story. We used to go and we'd sit on the benches and they were made out of like fiberglass or whatever. So we would have fart competitions, right? And because they would amplify. And this is how much girls liked me when I was in this time of the world. Like that's what my focus was on. I got one back and I let one instantly I was like, oh my God. Like I shit my pants. And I'm sitting there and I've never had a moment where my literal spirit left my body and I saw myself looking down and I was sitting at the spot and I had shit myself. So I just, I got up, I put my like jacket around me, I ran to the bathroom bathroom. Everyone's like, well, are you okay? I went in there, I cleaned myself up, and then I went to go get my bike, and it was locked. So I couldn't even go home. I couldn't even get home. So I just stood out in the wind for a while and finished the day. You know, I didn't smell. It was a very windy day. Anyways, it's sorry, I just want to segue. What's your most embarrassing story, Cam?
I mean, to stick with yours, I was playing baseball one time. I was in the outfield and it was in the middle of the inning, and I didn't want to get pulled out of the game, so I pissed my pants. And so, like, I'm sitting on center field with like these gray baseball pants, just getting darker and darker.
It's amazing how the most embarrassing things have to do with like us, how much we're afraid of going to the bathroom.
These very things that everyone deals with.
So, okay, we're segued a little bit. So at what point you've gotten through high school, right? You've developed, you've gotten a little more purpose in your life now. Yeah. You've got friends. How important like in your life has been like like friends? Like how much have they moved you along and like made things?
I think that's been the most important thing in my life. You know, when I look back, all the jobs I ever got were because I knew somebody, you know, through a friend basically who recommended me. And, you know, when I think back on good times, you know, and all the exciting things I've done, there was always friends involved, right? So I think that very much defined who I was, you know, and still does, you know, the friends, the company I keep, I think.
Yeah.
How long have you been friends with your current set of friends?
Mostly now, I mean, I've got a set of friends that I've known since high school, and we still talk and stuff, but my current friends are usually, I end up being friends with people I work with. So, you know, I worked at one company for 19 years. So, you know, I got some good friends there, and I'm actually in my new job working with some of, you know, a couple of those guys that I work with at that job too. So, you know, I've been very fortunate to meet some really good people that I've become friends with. So yeah, mostly, you know, a long time. I tend to think I'm loyal. So, you know, I keep the same friends, and I try and limit my friends to just a small group, because I don't think I have the energy all the time to really be vested in a lot of people. Where I think, like, you know, my son Rob, where he's got tons of friends, right? He's got friends everywhere. But he's more high energy. I'm kind of a low energy person. So, you know, I have a few good friends.
What was the concept of fatherhood like for you? What happened when you found out that you were going to be a dad? What was going through your head during that time?
Well, it was kind of scary. You know, it's funny looking back, like I felt like I'd kind of messed up because I hadn't started my life, and
I would do the same thing.
Yeah. And I was stressed out and I didn't know what to think. And
how old were you when you had Rob?
I think it was like 22. And, you know, Rob's son and mom and I, we went together, you know, we broke up pretty soon after that. So, you know, we would, you know, being a dad by myself too, I think. And then at that time, my parents moved away, you know, shortly after that. How old were you when, I don't know, Wayne moved away?
2, I think, something like that.
Yeah, 2. It was that young. Yeah. Wow.
Maybe older. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Dad, of anyone that should have the memory of those, that's like
it was a long time ago. So yeah, no. And so, you know, I mean, I like to think I was a good guy, and I was responsible, but it was difficult because, you know, shortly when I was about 22, that's when I started realizing, because when I got out of high school, I thought, you know, I'm going to just go out in the world and I'm going to work hard and work my way up in a company, because I wasn't too interested in school. So after a couple of years of that, I realized, you know, I got to go to school, right? So I did that. So it was tough because I was raising a kid, going to school, and my parents just moved away to, I think was it New Jersey or Houston, I think.
New Jersey was first.
It was New Jersey first. Yeah, they'd moved to New Jersey. So then I kind of felt, wow, I'm just been brought over to California thousands of miles and just sort of left there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I understood they had to leave when I was an adult, but I had, you know, and because I had Curtis, I had to stay. I felt strongly about that. I didn't want to leave. So, you know, I had roots here, which was just, you know, Curtis basically. And so I stayed, and it was kind of a tough time because I felt lonely. That was the first Christmas I ever spent alone.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, when after they moved. And so, and the funny thing, I wasn't that depressed about it because I felt like now I'm an adult. This is what I got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Because you went to your mom's and you had a whole family over there. So I wanted to make sure, you experienced that.
Did you feel like, like when you knew you were going to have a kid that like life was over?
No, I didn't think that. I just knew it was going to be hard. I realized that I wasn't going to maybe have as much fun because, at that age, I was, like everybody that age, going out and having fun and partying and, doing that. So there was a sense of responsibility there. But, it was hard at first. But as you got older, you were very good, a very good kid. And, I would just leave you, I worked a lot. So I was tired, but I put cereal and milk in the bottom shelf of the fridge and you'd go make your own breakfast so I could sleep in a little bit and things like that. And so you were really good and easy. And then as you got older, I mean, you talked really early and were very, intelligent, even young. And so it was easy. Once you got to a certain age and then we started doing stuff together, my friends really liked you, right? It got a lot easier.
What
It wasn't as bad.
What was your dream scenario of what I would turn into?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I just wanted, mainly for you to be happy, but I did think I knew you were smart enough to do whatever you wanted. So I thought maybe you'd get into engineering or something like that, or, something that was scientific. Because I was very influenced by, my stepdad, Wayne, right? Who was a chemical engineer. So he was very influential. I ended up going to, Cal Poly and got a degree in computer science. So, and he kind of, pushed me towards that in a good way. So, I don't know. I thought I would like to think you got into sports more, but you found acting, but which turned out was great because, we loved going to see you in plays, especially through high school, right?
Yeah.
And even later. So, we really enjoyed that, but it would have been nice if you'd played sports more. From a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
Because
because I want to go to high school football games. I'm sitting in the stands and go, that's my boy and all that stuff. Typical guy stuff, right?
I would have loved to play high school football.
Yeah, I know.
But I barely did any of that stuff because my mom lived on the East Coast and I'd have to leave for summer.
That's right.
And I wanted to go back, and the coaches were so mean to me because I wasn't there for summer ball.
You're not here for Hell Week. You're not playing.
Yeah. And I was just like, what? And they were like, literally, I was on the phone going like, hey, I'm trying my best here. And they were like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, okay, this is not inviting.
We're a high school football team. This is serious.
Yeah. But, that's probably why you got into acting, though.
Mm-hmm. I got into acting because they asked us to put electives on like a ranking of electives in 8th grade and junior high. And it was 1 through 8. And I had accidentally put theater or drama as number 1 and crossed it out and put 8, and I still got it. So the lady must have looked at that like, no one wants theater, and put me in that class anyways. And I was in that class.
She knew your gut. She goes, nope, this kid's making the wrong decision. He's going with his first choice.
A bunch about kismet, and all these things about how it has to happen. And I got detention because I was always in trouble and all this shit because I couldn't stop talking. And I walked out, and there was a girl that I liked, and she was super hot. And I was like, what are y'all doing out here? Y'all hanging out? Because I got a detention like a half hour later. And she was like, oh, it's auditions for Charlie's Aunt. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember Mr. Smouse talking about that. And I was like, she was like, you should audition. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went on audition. I got a part. I was like, that's all I started.
So were you not a theater or an actor person then?
No, it's funny because, I did stuff when I was little, right? I was like Judas Iscariot and used to play, and everybody did that kind of stuff. And I remember taking a drama class when I was young and really liking it, but no, it wasn't anything I even considered or was even really aware of. When I went to Cal Poly, I never went to one play. I didn't even know there was a theater there, basically, right?
Do you remember the first time Curtis told you that he was going to act in a play or do theater?
Well, by then, I remember he went to college to be like, you were an English major at first, right?
Yeah, after high
Yeah.
school, I went to community college, and then, everybody told me to Wayne, basically, who was a big influence in our lives, right?
Yes, exactly.
He
Yes.
said, you got to do something, you got to be practical. You should do English, and then you can teach theater.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I was fine with it. My thoughts were, as long as you get a 4-year degree and you finish it, because so many people start and don't finish, and if you're doing something you like, that I'm fine with that. So, I had my reservations and I worried about things a little bit, but um, you know, I don't think I worried about it that much though.
If you could choose any different career, what would you have done?
Yeah, I think, I sort of got into a career that's science based. So I think I would have liked to have been a teacher, a history teacher, something like that, because I find, I'm really interested in those types of things. But I don't know if I would have been a good one. I think I'm just happy that, my life's turned out the way it has. But, I've battled with, laziness and things and motivation sometimes. So, I've been success. I mean, I've been a manager at a company and things like that, but I think I would have maybe teach if I'd known what I know now, something like teaching. I think I would have liked to have done that.
Yeah. What's it like being 80?
It's great.
How old are you? 54. What are you?
56. Thanks.
56. What do you
Yeah.
think about at that age now? So like life's moved on. Your son's grown up, right? You've got a
Yep.
family.
Have
got a
you
career.
figured it out yet?
Yeah, you figured it out.
That's what
Yeah.
I've always wondered. When am I going to figure it out? I always seemed like when I was younger, oh, those people haven't figured out.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get to that point, right? For me, anyway, financially and relationship wise, and you know who your friends are and who you care about, and you've got, we got a big family. I got a lot of grandkids, so yeah, I do think I think I'm happier now than I've ever been. As happy as I've been in any other part of my life. So I think there's that overall sense, though, that time is running out. Like this whole COVID thing, it's been a year that I've been working from home and not really seen anybody. Um, I feel like time's running out, and that's a very valuable year to me, right? At my age, I feel, because who knows? My dad and my granddad, they both died pretty young, right, in their late 50s, and I'm getting to that point.
Yeah.
So it's always in the back of your mind. I don't feel like I'm that old, but I'm starting to see the effects of it, right? I feel the effects of it. So I know I am. I mean, I'm bald and got gray hair, and my muscle mass is disappearing, and all those things that happen when you get older. But it's good to be your own person and not have to worry about too much, and know that your kids are doing okay, and everything is working out for everybody and things like that. So yeah,
What do you
basically,
think? What do you think our purpose is in your humble opinion? Like, when you think about those things like life and like time's running out, like why do you think? Why do you think we're here?
Things are changing. When the problem is when you're younger and you have your high energy and you have the eye of the tiger,
Mhm.
and it's all about making money and being successful, and that's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Right. The older I've got, I've sort of dialed things in and dialed things down a little bit to where all I want to do is have fun. Right. I want to go to Disneyland. I want to go on vacations. I want to sit in the backyard with you and have a few beers. Whereas before the priorities were more, about, I got to get this done. I got to fix up the house. I got to do all these things, and, and work just eats away. I mean, we work a lot in America. So I just wish I'd focused more on fun. We've recently found camping, right? Since I started going out in the Jeep quite a few years ago, and camping and going family camping, and realizing that, people who didn't like it that end up going love it. And so, but then, everything comes to a halt because of COVID. So I just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
The small things, just to laugh, I want to laugh.
Yeah.
That's it. I want to be laughing.
So that's it in a nutshell. I want to be
Yeah.
laughing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think about that stuff all the time. Like I really thought about that. Because I've recently quit, but I've smoked, right?
Yeah.
And I always worry that that's going to have some giant detrimental health effect on me. I think, I don't know what time it is that we all have this moment where like, oh no, like when does my mortality come into play? Like, another time was when I was young and I smoked pot and I held it in too long and I coughed really bad and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Like that's the closest other time I remember when the first time I experienced mortality. But like, I think like this quarantine has made me think about it a lot more. And I constantly think about like, I don't know, like, have I squandered it? Like, have I achieved my goals? Did I do what was easy? Is that what it's about? It's like that, those movies when it's like, should I go for love or should I go for career? And they like choose career and they're like, you should have gone for love. But then that guy would have been mad too. I think.
Yeah, I feel like I've squandered a lot of my time. Like I could have had a lot better, a better time with my life if I just maybe focused on that more.
Yeah. But I mean, I also wonder if that's just like who you are and who I am. Like maybe that's just who we are, right?
Yeah.
Like I always think about that. There's like this need to be important. I think that we have as human beings, like a true need that I need to be more important, like this thing that we have. And I think that's the way that we get driven, right? Like that's the drive of us to keep going and not just lay down and do nothing. Like it's like this natural fire that gets put in people. And I feel like a lot of restless nights where I really love the happiness of things, but I'm like 34 and I'm like, what have I done? Like what have I done really?
Yeah, it's difficult because we all want to feel important and be successful and, do those things. And it is difficult because, it's so much energy. To be successful takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't come, it's a lot of hard work for anybody. It's that 10,000 hours thing, right? So, I don't know. You got to get to a certain point where you feel like you're successful enough. You got to find that line where you can go, okay, I'm successful enough in my own mind where now I can just go out and have fun, but you can still have fun on that journey too. But
yeah, I think it's in stories. Like, I think I really like want to write stories. I think that's where the next evolution of it is like figuring out how to like get those things down and be good at it. I know like Cam and I were even talking about like, what are we doing with this podcast? And like, yeah. And I think we both reserve the fact that it's going to evolve and we know that we want to talk about. And I think like, we appreciate you being here for the first experiment of what this is going to change and evolve. But like, you expect like this great idea to come out and you're like, I have it. And the futility of when it doesn't work the first time, you're like, oh shit. First of all, life lesson, don't give yourself dates until you can hit them. But, yeah, I think about that a lot. And I think about like, how I'm gonna feel at the time when I go like, this is the point in time where I know I'm gonna be facing that idea of like dying.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna think about? Am I gonna be really proud of the stuff I did? And every time, honestly, every time I think about it, when I think about career or when I think about my exploits, when I think of all that shit is gonna be always unattainable, right? I think what really keeps me sleeping is I'm like, if I've just had some really great relationships with people.
Yeah.
And that connectivity between people, like that's what makes me happy. When I think about like how those are the things that I think last beyond us in a way, is that like that time, those times when we really rose above the surface level and the monetary and all the horse shit that we get pumped with. Yeah. And all that, none of it's real, but what's really real is like the time we get to share on things, and like the stories we get to tell and the energy we get to create that way is like really important.
Yeah, especially when it's organic, right? Because you can go do something, have a great time, and the next time you do the same thing, it's not so great, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you just got to keep trying those things. And even though maybe it doesn't work out the first time, just keep going. And then sometimes we just have the greatest moments, right? The greatest weekends or whatever. And you just have the best time.
And I like sharing like hyper passion things, right? Like working on art and trying to develop creative things is like hyper passion things. And also, we have those things in our lives where it becomes these like really great moments of like euphoria. Where you're like, yeah. Like eventually, like I know that there's been a ton of stress lately as to like what creatively are we gonna do with our new enterprise and all this stuff. I know Cam, like I've been sleeping well the last few nights thinking about this stuff. But but we'll look back on this and go like, remember that was like the best time because we were the heightened aliveness of like panic. It's interesting of those things.
Well, and you feed off other people's passions too, right? You've got me to do things I would never normally do.
Yeah, that's why I had to have you on the podcast because
exactly. So through you, because you're a very high energy person and you're always doing stuff, and then people want really like being around you and your friends because you guys have a good time.
Yeah. I got my dad, we did a Hamiltunes, which is a Hamilton sing-along, and I did the rap battle, and I asked my dad to come up on stage and be my hype man. It was the single greatest moment of anything that ever happened, where my dad is in khakis and a button-down t-shirt with long sleeves, and it's going like, yeah, and like dancing around and like getting, but that's the thing I love is that like my dad is never not down to clown, like to go all the way that you could possibly go. It was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself. And then I feel pressure because I know you always take things so seriously. So I studied like how to be a hype man and watch YouTube videos. So, I felt like I went in prepared.
See, I think that's one of my big takeaways of life is it's, I've seen death close up, and it's about not the material things you have, and it's about the experience that you put into life and how much effort you put into it.
Yeah.
Is as something simple as being your hype man. You want to put as much effort into it because it's going to be the most fun, it's going to be the most entertaining, it's going to you're going to put yourself into it, so you're going to feel a lot more appreciation for doing it.
Yeah.
And it's about the experiences as you go through life. It's not what you accomplish from it. I think when you look back towards the end and you're going to go, look at all the cool things I did and fun things I did and experiences I had and relationships I made. It's not necessarily the material or the big accomplishments. It's the fun you had doing them.
Exactly. And the thing is, you got to remember that most of the best stories are when things go wrong, not when they go right.
Yeah, I love that.
That's the advice. There's the advice.
Yeah. So why not do it?
Yeah.
We've all done things like, I have had some podcast experience. I did a spoof of a podcast. And I put all this effort into it. We had Sing It for the granddaughters. So I got the microphones from that. And I did a little recording and made fun of the podcast. But,
Wait. We got to hold up.
It was a competition.
No. That's not the part. You had Sing It?
Yeah. It came with a microphone, the Disney Sing It. It was the only microphone I could find, and I got it to work on the laptop. So I was holding like a pink microphone. And, but then when I sent it in, and the guy, it was 3 people on the podcast, and the guy that ran it was like, this is great, because I was making fun of the other 2 guys. But when it came to the competition, I could tell by the tone of their voices that they hated it because I was making fun of them. Mm-hmm. And so then that's the problem with putting yourself out on a limb. And that's why I always respect anybody that is an artist or puts on plays and does that kind of thing is, it must be pretty nerve-wracking, because even when I do a little thing, I have so much anxiety afterwards, like, was it good? Or, and that's just one little thing that nobody even cares about.
Yeah.
So you guys, you're brave to do these types of things.
I appreciate that, Father.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we need a little boost. It's funny because like you go through and you're like, all right, I know like we've got a plan, and we're like dancing around, and like we're like, now we can drink beers.
It was like the movie Grease.
It was like movie Grease. They're trying to cancel that, right? Like they want to pull it out because they say that there's a lot of I don't want to bring it down. Let's not get into the like this is getting canceled. I just heard about it, and I want to bring it.
But I've always had a philosophy too: is you've got to always have something to look forward to, right? Something planned in the future, something you can really look forward to, even if it's something small. So I always tell the kids, even during this time, that we got so much to do and so much stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of great experiences still to be had.
No, I think that's great, especially like in this time, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us has been like having that time to reflect. I think that's what's kind of happening. But I think like after Christmas, it turned into this like, oh God, like, is this life now? Because we also have to start facing the reality that the vacation's over in a sense, because there is some vacation aspect to this, right? Like when it started, it was like, hell yeah, like I'm at home working all the time. And now I'm like, I'm at home working all the time. Like, I'm like, God, I'm tired of sitting in a chair. Like, I feel like I'm not walking around. Like I'm having to force myself to do stuff because I'm just getting fat. And, because I don't have the energy to like,
Well,
anytime
yeah.
I need support, I have to eat,
I'm in front of a laptop, 4 days a week for 12 hours, basically.
Yeah. And now we have to think of the prospect of going back to life though, but it's still not going to be the same. It's kind of a treacherous time, I think,
It
for
is,
all of
because
us.
there's a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety having to be at home right away, and now I've got anxiety going back to
Do you
work.
deal with a lot of anxiety?
Sometimes, not really. So maybe I'm making that sound worse than it is, but yeah, I do. I kind of, whenever I've got something planned, I always have a little bit of anxiety about things. But when
Yeah.
I'm there, I'm fine. So yeah, I
feel
deal
like
with it
I'm
a little bit.
constantly afflicted with
Yeah.
I feel and I don't know if I honestly feel like that's maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like it's becoming increasingly worse every year that we go on with the development of technology, and this like, and I think that's why we talk about this concept of like, will we have achieved enough? And I think it's because we're constantly being blasted with success or like literally like Bitcoin, right? And like that kind of stuff, or the GameStop. And I'm like, shit, if I would have put $10 in, all my problems would be solved. And you see that shit attack you all the time. Or I feel like because I can text somebody all the time when I don't get a text right away, I feel like it's a thing. Or there's all these interesting things about anxiety. And I feel like a lot of the people I talk to who are my friends and stuff and things like that, like we deal like, and I think all of us as human beings, we deal with that a lot. Like our mental ability to deal with things and process things is so challenging sometimes, especially I think if you're intelligent, really intelligent. And I don't mean to, I'm sure there's people who have, but I feel like that the concept of being able to understand things a little bit more globally, I feel like this is being mean. I don't know why, but that like I constantly feel like I need to be more than what I am, and I think that causes a lot of anxiety. Like I think about being a teacher, and I'm like, is this my life? I like doing it. I enjoy it, but I also feel like I look at my bank account and I go like, shit, teachers don't get paid anything, and I work on this stuff with Play Upstream, and I'm like, God, this makes me so happy, and working with all these people and developing all this stuff. But I almost feel like it's sort of a band-aid sometimes too. Like should I quit my day job, like, and focus, but I can't. And like, it's just an interesting world we live in. But I say the lesson that I'll pull out of this whole conversation is though that when I really get upset and thinking about all those big lofty goals, I think about this moment I get to share with like one of my best friends and my dad, and we're sitting here talking on a podcast, and I'll get to listen to this. And if our 10 listeners hopefully are like, oh, I thought they were going to do better with their first new podcast, I'll be like, you know what, I don't know, man,
I'm never listening again. Failed.
Yeah. Oh shit, we got to find 10 more.
But if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? Would it be better?
No.
Yeah.
Because I would say that we've said this a few times, is that this pandemic motivated us all to start working on the things we've been talking about forever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been doing a podcast. We're talking about doing a podcast forever. The thing that got in our way is because we didn't have it perfectly planned. And now look at us. We don't have it perfectly planned and we're doing it anyways. We're like, we got to put it up there.
And you got 2 podcasts.
Yeah, we got 2.
Yeah.
That's funny you say that. You're getting so mad at ourselves. We have one that we really like, and we're trying to branch off. But that's the thing, right? And now we're literally talking about writing. We're talking about doing all this stuff. And like my father wrote a science fiction story that I actually loved, that he wrote for college.
Really?
Yeah.
It was about.
What was it about, Rob?
It was about overpopulation and it's the same old science fiction theme, like the rich people are living in a dome and they're only allowed to have one kid. And outside the dome, it's all about trying to find recyclable stuff to make money. And inside, they got this kid. It's a short story. And of course, that kid, everything's perfect for them, but the kid goes down the stairs, slips and falls and dies. And,
So there is some artistic genes in there.
Yeah.
I've always felt like I wanted to write a book. See, there I get, it's all about motivation, right? And laziness. Like, I think, wow, if I just worked on it a couple hours a week, it'd be done, right? And maybe it wouldn't even be good because it's such a big task. Like, what if it's not good? That kind of thing.
My big thing is anytime I think or just try and start a project, it's what is this for? Who's this for? And most of the time it's like, who freaking knows?
Yeah.
But since this pandemic and we've been working together, now I have an audience of at least 6 with the Play Upstream people. And, it gives the purpose to why I'm doing it instead of just, I'm going to write this thing and then let it just float out in the universe and do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you enjoy doing it, who cares how it turns out, right?
Well, and how many times, and I honestly think the other thing is, and I try to tell my kids this because I'm the worst offender of this thing as well, is that you want to go from A to Z all the time, right? You want to be like great at the thing when you do it. Like, I'm going to write a science fiction story. And if it's not like I, Robot, it's not good enough, right? and then you see all these people who just literally, a lot of people's ideas were, let's just go and do it and it'll get better. How many podcasts have we listened to on episode 1? You're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And I think that this is like so meta. It's so meta right now. We're talking about life and death. And we're talking about is the birth of a podcast and the inevitable death of it, and what we're doing with our greatest critic here.
That's right. Yeah.
So Rob, what do you look forward to?
Me?
What are the things? Yeah. What are the things you want to?
I
still. What are your goals
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being retired. I think, I got a lot of friends that say like, I'm going to do consulting. And I'm like, I can't wait for the day where I'm not working so I can do all the things I want to do, right?
What are those things? What do you want to do while you're retired? What are the things you look forward to doing?
I like to read. So I'd like to read more. I wouldn't mind, I do some hobby stuff. Curtis has talked about it on the podcast before, World War II miniatures type stuff. So I do a lot of painting and gluing and those types of things. So the stuff that makes me happy, I'm very happy at home. But I do to get some adventure in my life. I have a Jeep, so I go out with buddies, jeeping and camping and stuff like that. And we take the kids and, we make it a family thing. So I really enjoy that. I'd like to do that more, but then you face the issue of getting older and can you really do it? Right. So, and then right now, I really just look forward to hanging out with friends and spending time with family. Even before COVID, that became the focus of my life, having a lot of grandkids around. And we've had some great times meeting up with, Rob at Disneyland and he's very inclusive and we have a pretty inclusive family. So, we've always.
He took my sister around Disneyland. I got too sick and exhausted, and he met up with my sister. Hadn't met her before.
Too. I was on a date, and I went and hung out with Cam. I was like, "Hey, we got to go rescue my one sister," and we did, and it was a blast.
Everybody likes Curtis. The family really likes him. He's always fun to be around. We have a really good time at our family get-togethers. So he's a big part of that.
I mean, your whole family's like that, though. They're all very inclusive.
Yeah, we try to be.
I was at Thanksgiving. They pushed me to the front of the line and made sure I was well fed and brought me into the stories and didn't make me feel like I was left out. So that's a big family thing for you guys.
Yeah, and we're not judgmental either. We all just goof off and we don't care. We're not trying to. We're not putting on airs. We're not trying to impress anybody. We do have a good time when we're together.
I'm really thankful too, and this maybe reminded me of this because we were talking about making podcasts. My dad was talking about playing World War II miniature games, and what you don't know is that like I've been a closeted nerd for a long time until it became cool, right? And the only reason that I'm into like the first person I played Dungeons and Dragons with when I was 7 was my dad, and he bought me the kit and we played. And he was like, "What's your character's name gonna be?" And I was like, "Dragon." He was like, "That's a dumb name." So I changed it. But he looked and I spelt it wrong, and he's like, "You spelt it Dargon, and that's your character's name." But I like look at that, I'm like, shit. Like we used to play, like we got into all this nerdy shit. Like we play, but it's now all mainstream and it's all cool. We play Warhammer 40K all the time, and I'd be like 13 playing with my dad these miniatures games. And the best part is I always whip my dad's ass. And but one thing I know that we've been talking about, and this is going to come out in the summer, but I was thinking who that 6th person was going to be. Cam, we were talking about this. I asked my dad to do it.
Yeah.
We will eventually in the summertime hopefully do a D&D either Twitch or podcast. And I was trying to think who that person was that I asked to do it. And it was you as the 6th person. I was sitting there going, I know who it is. Who is it?
No specific date on that yet, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
No
I haven't played for a long time.
Well, we'll get into all that, but I just want to be based on stories, right? That's honestly, that might be my first thing that I make that's going to be a story. And I think that it'll help that it's a medium that I really love. And like, I've been getting really influenced by how much stuff is happening on like Twitter, and like, there's a world around it now that I'm really excited about. But yeah, that's my most thankful thing is that a lot of the time we talk about like these big lofty ideas. And I think the biggest thing that we have is a big, great imagination as human beings, right? And maybe like our job in life is to create, right? Create stuff. I don't know, energy, right? Like love, friendships, create material things, create all this stuff. And I think the greatest gift my father gave me was my imagination, right? And like, and I thank you for that, Dad, because I think that like that's one of the coolest things that we've been able to do is to talk about all these big lofty ideas and giant huge storylines and share and all the things that we love because we're both really epic nerds. But
yeah, and we're competitive too. I think that's why we've always liked games. So I think we've always enjoyed that.
Yeah, how'd the playoffs in fantasy go for you this year? So but yeah, I think we've reached a natural good place to say thank you, Dad. And I want to ask you this question. This is going to be a question that I want to bring on. We're going to evaluate this. What is your greatest piece of advice that you could give? Like after all of your life, like what would you pass on to a generation if they were to ask you, oh, great wise Robert James Shields, shaman of an era, what is your wisdom to pass on to people about life?
Yeah, I think, based on my experiences, I'd probably have to say like, stop trying to be so cool all the time and just enjoy yourself. Right? Just have fun.
Love that.
I get tired of people that, just too serious all the time. And we see a lot of that in our society right now, right? Everybody's angry and too serious, and we've lost that kind of. Where's the fun in being an American? I think that's kind of all disappeared somehow.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to that, I think. So I think it's just all about having a good time, having something to look for. Like I said earlier, just having something to look forward to, even if it's just planning something like a camping trip or something with your friends. Doing something, even if it's online, playing some games and things like that, right? Just put some effort into it. That's what I like about my son a lot, is whenever we go camping or do stuff, he always goes, he puts in 110% and makes sure we all have a good time. And everybody really appreciates that. And that type of things, it's contagious, right? People, it makes them happy to be around high energy people, I think. So try and be high energy. We only have so much energy in each given day, but save it up for good times, not for bad times.
So many commas when we carve that onto your gravestone.
I was gonna say, I don't know if we can fit it on a t-shirt or not, but it's great advice.
We're putting it on a t-shirt. We are for sure putting that on a t-shirt.
I didn't know you wanted a soundbite. I thought you wanted a lecture.
It was like change subject, like you had a great thing which like tried to be cool all the time, just have fun, and it was like period, but then it went like, oh god.
You could probably market it as a self-help tape.
Oh my god, I have to put that on a t-shirt. Oh, all right. Well, all
That's
right.
amazing. Thank you so much for being here. That was awesome.
Thanks for
Hey,
being our first
thanks, guys.
guest,
I really enjoyed it.
Dad. That was awesome.
And there it is. The first and sometimes guest interview. I thought your dad brought up a lot of very wise and good things. To start it off on the top, I just want to mention or talk about, he talked about doing things, and it's about the experience and putting your all into things and not worrying about the end product, but it's more about the enjoyment and fun that you had while doing it. And I was nervous for this first go around of and sometimes guess. I don't know how you felt, Rob.
Oh, I'm still nervous. I'm still nervous. But yeah, I think you hit the nail around the head. Is that like I see this as like I literally see our future echoes of like what we're gonna do with this, and I think we're figuring it out. And I'm really excited about the idea of like, look, this is our creative piece of thing, and it's gonna evolve just as like if our last podcast was the same way, right? We found it as we went on and improved upon things, and the scariest part is jumping off the first time, right? And I think for everybody who listens to this, like, go do the thing.
Yeah.
Go do the thing. And I
just
think
try it.
Yeah. I spent so many nights just wondering. I want everything to be great. I want things to be interesting. I want to be profound. And you know what it really takes is a lot of trial and error to find those great things. And I think like talking to my dad, which is great, is like that's a personification of it, right? Is that like, hey, just enjoy what you're doing, be passionate, give 110%, and what you get out of it is going to be gold, baby.
Yeah. People appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
And I think that gave me a lot of calm afterwards. It was great advice, and
yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm pumped. And I know that like I have a lot of questions, right? And I have a lot of people who I want to enjoy those questions and talk about them. And we'll evolve this. And you know what? This could be a podcast that lasts a long time. This could be a podcast we get a better idea. I don't care, right? I enjoy the process of making them, and I hope you enjoy the process of listening to them, because goodness, I am going to have such a good time recording and putting it all together. And you know why it's a little bit different? It's because we can have there's a little levity in this. I'm talking to my dad.
Yeah.
I talk to my dad about stuff. And I think that, in all transparency, I don't know, man, we've done this will be what, our 12th podcast that will officially come out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something like 850,000 podcasts out there.
Right? Yeah. Is that the number?
In the book I just read, yeah.
Oh God.
850,000. And they go like, if you don't have a niche, like people aren't going to find you and all that stuff. And they say like, if you're doing this for a good time or you're doing this to make money, like it changes everything differently. I think that this is a couple things, right, for us. And I like talking about this on our first one because this is kind of our creative child. I mean, you're branching off and doing your own podcast. You don't work with me anymore, but what we are talking about here is this is something creative that we enjoy doing. I really enjoy talking to people and figuring out stuff about them. And
your dad brought up a good point of saying, what else would you be doing? We'd just be wasting our time doing nothing.
I don't know about that. I got a lot of work to do. But I think for us, like, this is going to turn into something that we just keep doing, and maybe that's that we pour enough passion and energy into this and really enjoy talking to people. We talk to some different people, and I think the structure of this is going to evolve and come out of the things that we find success in. And I think that's the way that you and I have been really successful at building stuff so far is maybe we don't have the answers right away. Maybe you don't have the answers right away. Maybe we all don't have the answers right away. And I know that I just hope you enjoy this journey that we're on. And that's really what it's about, baby.
I look forward to your dad's critiques of his episode.
I got it. He's going to have a lot of self-critiques if I know my dad.
We're going to have a full re-edit. Expect episode 1.2.
Yeah. Is coming. And I think we figured this out too, is that like while this closure conversation focuses on our new podcast, I think that we figured out really how we want this to be structured and what we're going to be having conversations about. And I'm ready. So yeah,
Yeah, it's really, we're gonna figure out a lot of your problems, I think.
I have so many problems. It's unreal. I have so many problems. It's unreal. And also, I just want everyone out to know that we had this conversation about death today, right?
Mhm.
Play this podcast at my funeral. And I want you to play my father's quote with advice on it.
The greatest piece of advice: t-shirts will be out.
T-shirts will be out in 2 to 8 months, and just be ready to enjoy that wonderful experience he had.
Did you, speaking of your dad's advice, what are some of the things that caught your ear or thoughts about what he had to say? Anything stick out for you
Yeah,
or leave you with more questions? I've had a couple of those.
No, for sure. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot lately about what I want to do with my life, right? And I think that, my dad's a really good what I love about my dad and what he reminds me of is like he's very content with the choices that he's made. And I appreciate that. And when you hear him talk about that, like what he's really looking for is to relax, have a good time, be retired, work on hobbies and go camping,
Mhm.
And and I think that that's part of the duality of what we are, right? Like the yin yang aspects is that we have to it's in balance. And I think that I have a lot of lofty goals that I want to achieve.
Mhm.
And I look at my dad who's 56, right? And that's 22 years from now. And if I have the same like joy and I've worked hard at all this stuff 22 years later, and I'm like my dad's age and I've got like a family and I'm happy and I'm healthy, but I'm still working on all these endeavors that I have with my friends and building that stuff up,
Yeah.
then maybe I should stop worrying so much about what everything looks like in that amount of time and start thinking about the path that I'm going to take to get there, and it starts on stuff like this day to day.
Yeah. It really it stuck with me how we talked about it's a more he wants to retire and build those relationships because the older I get, when I was younger, I had these big goals. I was going to move out of Michigan. I wanted to go do music, and I'm moved to LA, and I want to work on the biggest movies. And all my goals were more materialistic or like job oriented.
Mhm.
And the older I get, the more I'm finding and struggling with, to be honest, is I want to spend more time with my family and
Yeah.
my friends and do those things. So it's an interesting time because the more I do it, the less I care about how big of the thing I work on is. I'm more worried about, I want to pay the bills and I want to spend my time really
Yeah.
getting back to those relationships.
I think, yeah. And like how I found like a lot of the things that I really thought I wanted to do are very superficial, right? Or they're
Mhm.
like, not, I don't even know if that's right, but like for instance, like, dating, right? And like, there was a time in my life when I didn't want to settle down. I didn't want to do all that stuff. And like, and then you start to think about stuff and you're like, well, I don't know. Like, it just seems like that's not what what I'm interested in now is substance and evolving those things and like evolving like a friend group and evolving the artistic things that I want to do and stop trying to find the instant gratification, maybe
Yeah.
like sow the seeds of the things that you want to build. And I think that that's a lot of what, when I start to think about like, I guess I get worried because I think sometimes that I've missed my opportunity,
Mm.
I think about that a lot.
See, I think while we were talking, I was thinking your dad was selling himself a little short. Because he's still, at 56, this is his second podcast he's been on. He's started taking up camping and going out and jeeping with his butt. Like he's still doing new things and accomplishing brand new things. So for him to, I think he was selling himself a little short on that stuff.
Yeah. And I don't think, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I think that like it's over. I think my career wise, I start to look at stuff and I'm like, oh, like I think that I wish I had a little more, like I want to get back into acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I often worry that like I missed or I wish I knew what I knew, all that shit
Yeah.
you go through where you're like, oh man, well, I gotta start thinking about saving money and doing all this stuff. And like, I'm getting more tired, and all that jazz. But I think that's why I talk about making stories. Like, I think that that's where I don't invest my time in, is the idea of like writing and creating. And I
Mhm.
think with this, like I want to start figuring out that too, and start to figure out a lot of things like these podcasts become also we talked about a little bit about was it with like, oh, I'm sorry, I was talking with a student today, and they were talking about how they don't want to necessarily do art for a career, but it's always been an outlet for them to kind of like deal with things or produce things. And I think like when I work on these podcasts and stuff, it's like a battery for me, man. Like Play Upstream, like all the stuff I'm working
Yeah.
on artistically is a battery for me. And it keeps me want to make more and get bigger and make more. And that's why like I think I was so stressed out this week about starting this first podcast because we had some ideas and they didn't necessarily work the way we wanted them to work, right?
Yeah.
Like believe you me, we spent a lot of time. This is not we still are kind of like we made a date for ourselves and this is where we had to, here we are.
Yeah.
You know, but we weren't gonna not have that date. And we also know that like if there are two people who are gonna work tirelessly to try to really make this as great as they possibly can is you and I, right? I'm gonna work my butt
Yeah.
off. And I'm excited for that journey. And I just, you know, it's it's tough.
Was there anything you learned today from your dad that you didn't know
No,
previously?
you know, I don't think we got into some of the stuff that I wanted to get into, but I think partially too is like we've been used to interviewing people who are artists and kind of talking about their things, and I'm kind of pinpointing the things. And like I think that's too like with, you know, it's my dad and like we're kind of getting into stuff. Like I there were some things I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to make this into like a whole like let's unveil our family stuff like stuff, you know. I'm just curious about things, you know. I
Is there
kind
any
of
that you can share that you, maybe not specifics, but is there
I
the
really wanted to ask at a certain point, like, you know, I wanted to ask what was that conversation like when you were told that my mother was pregnant? Because I'm always curious about that, right?
yeah.
Like what? Like that's a life changer.
Yeah.
Like,
And he brought up too, I remember thinking, I feel like a lot of people feel this way. Like I want kids,
oh,
but I have that same thought of I want to get successful and be the top dog, CEO, have
mhm.
all the money, have all the house, be fully prepared before I do that. But to be honest, I don't know anyone, realistically, anyone that has kids that has done it that way.
Yeah, I don't think in our friend group we have a lot of people who have kids either, right?
It's true.
I mean, and I think that may be a sign of like I know a lot of people who in my hometown who do, but I
Yeah.
think in the world that we live in here, like being close to LA, and like a lot of us are kind of like moving, like living not living fast, but I guess like we have a lot of stuff going on all the time. I think our priorities are a little different. Like our timeline is different, right?
Hmm.
Like I've always said I didn't want to have kids till I was 40, right? You know, like that. But then now I'm like, oh, is that too old? Like they'll be 20, I'll be 60. Is that okay? I don't know, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think about the fact that like I've got a lot of things I want to put in place. I think life's starting later for us.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what that is necessarily, but like, you know, I remember talking to my grandparents. They're like, yeah, we got a house. We're like, you know, we got married at like 18 and started life.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of like the people I went to school with in Michigan.
Yeah.
That's the Michigan kind of way has been, you know, high school, you go off to college for a year, you go to like MSU or U of M or something, find your girlfriend, wife there, get married. By 25, you have a house, kid, probably two kids at that point.
Yeah.
Um, like I remember when I was younger and I heard people having kids, I was like, wow, it's so young.
Yeah.
And then I've heard like, then it became at like 25, 26, I was like, wow, they're getting divorced. Holy, I haven't even started. I haven't even started that process.
Yeah.
I haven't even started the process and they're living a whole life.
Yeah.
Not that I want a divorce, but they're going through a whole
I
bunch of experiences so young.
I just think that's the changing way of life though, right? It's like I don't know. I feel like as the kids we were in the time that we were growing up, we felt like there was enough history in our country and enough history in the world around us and enough technology being built that we were like, it's always been this way. this is how life goes. And we were like, yeah. And now we're like, whoa, it's kind of changing. And everyone's like, but the rituals, like this is what we've done forever. We're like, that's not, I don't know, like what for like 30, 40 years, really? Like, yeah. And then we're all like, that's tradition. And it's like, no, like what? Like like not too long ago, like, relatively, there were horrors happening all the time. And there still are. And like, the concept of like, we just learned like in 100 years not to shit upriver. Like that's you know what I mean, like we have to keep this relative. And so now we're sitting here looking at like, what am I going to do with my life? And it's really an evolving thing. And God, I hate the confines of what we've been told to do by what we know in our past, what we've in our immediate past, or like our grandparents and things like that, and like that evolution, what we see in television and what we see in like a lot of the popular culture that we exist in is like this idea of this, nuclear family maybe is a part of it. And this idea of like finding love and all these things. And like, what I think we're really starting to find is that we are complex individuals, and we have so much stuff and pouring information. Like I was reading a study today about like how the differences between people identifying as like LGBTQ plus as it went from generation, like Gen X to millennial to Gen Z, I think is how it goes, and that between millennials and Gen Z, bisexuality doubled in its percentage. And I think that that's because these explorations of who we are as people, and this knowledge and this acceptance of what those things are, as much as we push for these greater ideals of like freedom and individual choice, that we're not, thankfully, in the region that we live in, necessarily stoning people anymore. I think we still have a long way to go in that development, but like, be who you want to be.
Like your dad said, don't try and be cool and just be yourself.
Don't try to be cool. I mean, just be cool.
Live your life.
Most people don't try anyways, and that's what we're going to leave with, is that the coolest people don't try to be cool. That's the lesson that we learned from today. I think, don't try to be cool.
If I could remember your dad's full advice, I'd repeat it, but
I think it was,
I think that's somewhat of a summation of a lot of the things I gleaned from that conversation with your dad, and I look forward to more conversations with him. Me too, Cam. Me too.
Stop trying to be so cool all the time and just enjoy yourself.